everyone. Just started the broadcast a little bit early. Try and see if we can't get some questions in here a little bit early and just see how everybody's doing. Can you guys hear me? Shouldn't be able to see a screen yet, but sound should be good. Having a little bit of technical difficulties during the hot seat on Monday, so okay, cool. Awesome. Debbie, welcome. Brittany, awesome to see you here. Brian, good to see you guys. Hopefully I see a couple more on here. I don't see any questions on the Q&A thread yet, and I was scrolling through the group to try and see if there's anything in here as well. So hopefully there's some good questions in here. If not, we can talk about stuff at length. It's kind of up to you guys. Week 7. So here we got Jenny. Jenny, welcome. Good to see you. Miri, awesome. So we got more people flying on here. That's awesome. Okay, let's see. All right. Cool, I see your question, Brian. Anybody else have any questions? You can type them into the chat. And I think I might even bring you on live. Brian, do you have a microphone? Headphones, microphone type thing? Might answer that question live. Cool, yeah, find that for me, please. It'd just be easier because that's kind of a deeper question. Might be easier to talk back and forth. So, all right. Anybody else have any questions? You can either put them on the Q&A thread or ask them in the question box here. Just let me know, raise your hand, whatever you got to do. And go from there. You should be hearing my voice. You shouldn't see the screen. There's no screen yet. We are recording, though, so everybody listening to the recording, I'll put a little note, I guess, when they actually start the full-on Q&A. Brian, let me know when you actually get your stuff in the chat. Yes, indeed. Hey, Jenny, I can't do sales page reviews, not on the call. I made a couple announcements in the group, but I'm just no longer doing reviews on Q&As for several reasons. One, they're too short. They don't give you a full justice for the full review. I don't know enough about your marketplace. I don't know enough about all that stuff. So, however, because you bought a full review a while ago, I'd be more than happy to take a secondary look, but not on the Q&A call. Okay. All right, Mary can hear. All right. So, Brian, let me know if you've got your stuff. If you have not, I'm going to answer Debbie's question. Debbie, you said, perhaps you can give a little more info regarding doing a book. What exactly does that mean? Doing a book. Okay. And then, Brian, I'll answer your question to the best of my ability then. I might ask some questions in between if you can't hop on the stuff. Stuff? I don't know, Brian. Brian fan? I'm not sure. Stuff. Okay, sure. So Debbie's asking a question basically on how to do research when you have a full book that you're writing for. The Essential Oils project / any other time where you have either maybe it's a free plus shipping offer like Russell Brunson teaches about, or it's a book that you're trying to sell via sales letter, email, or direct mail, or something like that. Anytime you have a physical or a digital ebook that you're trying to sell, and it's already done, then you kind of have an advantage as a copywriter for a few reasons. And I'm going to go back to Eugene Schwartz on this one, because Gene sold the crap out of a lot of books. And he was an extremely good copywriter when you came to him with a finished manuscript. The reason being, he had several stages that he would review this thing in. And the first stage is he would do a very quick overview of the entire book, where he would go through and either underline or highlight the manuscript physically. In this case, you can do it on Kindle. And he would kind of go through and go, okay, this word stands out. These are the chapters. This is what it's talking about. This is the basic overview. And he would write his notes down in a little notepad as he was going through that. Then he would go through each chapter with a basically looking for interesting bullets or interesting sentences that he could then either write down or copy or highlight or underline or something like that. And he would go through every chapter like that and write a piece in the notepad for that. And then he would take all of that research, so the big overview of the book and the individual chapters itemized like bullet list, and he would send that off to an assistant that would compile everything for him and then send him back the document, basically an entire document full of his research, and then he would go back through that. It would give him an extra few days in between that view or that look, and then he would start extracting some of the best things from his research in the book to use as bullet points, as copy, as sales messages, as all that cool stuff. So that's going to be the Eugene Schwartz method of reviewing a book. Now, when you're doing it for this particular assignment, there's lots of stuff that you can go through here. My dog's doing cartwheels on the ground, so forgive him in the background. You will hear him. Loki, that's enough. I appreciate you. You keep it interesting. So the book, the essential oils book in particular, you're going to have a lot of opportunity to like learn more about the specific essential oils, learn more about the specific remedies and all that kind of stuff. And basically the whole exercise is to get you to go over a relatively large text as quickly as possible and extract the things that are most valuable to a sales pitch to sell the book. And by doing that, you kind of look at, you run the gambit. You find the biggest, juiciest things that you can say in your sales piece in 2,000 words. Because obviously taking 147 pages or whatever it is and distilling it down into 2,000 words and selling it the best is going to be difficult if you overthink it. But if you go through with a big broad stroke and then you go individually through every chapter and kind of find the best parts, like Gene Schwartz did, it's going to give you a much better ability to extract the good stuff from it while not getting overwhelmed in the minutia. Not you, Brian. Brian Mead, not Brian Fan. So does that help, Debbie? Does that answer your question? Okay, cool. Yeah. Let's see here. All right, now Brian asks, Brian Mead, sorry, not Brian Fan, because we have multiple Brians on here. Brian Mead says, I feel like I'm not advancing as fast as I want to be. What did you do to get where you're at right now? Or what would you suggest I do to advance in marketing and copywriting as fast as possible? Study books, take notes, write more mock sales letters, work on more projects, all of the above, just looking for some direction. All right. Brian, oh yeah, Debbie, that's a really good thing. Definitely, if you want to do more research on free plus shipping offer sales letters, look at Russell Brunson. He's working with himself and a couple clients on that. Brian Mead, your question is one where I have to ask a couple questions. First off, what is it about where you're at right now that makes you feel like you're not going fast enough? What is it? Do you feel like you're comparing yourself to other people and you're not quite at their level? Do you feel like you're not getting something in particular that's frustrating you? Do you feel like financially strained, emotionally strained? Did you just have like a negative thing happen to you in terms of copywriting, like something didn't convert or anything like that? Like, what is it that makes you feel like you're not going fast enough? Because that's not the actual issue here. Speed and advancement and how fast you go is never actually the issue that you're concerned with. It's something else underlying it that's making you ask that question. So let me know what the answers are. Okay, you got to be more descriptive than that because we don't have a mic where you can answer a question and I can ask follow-up. So you got to be more descriptive than the results, and I think my confidence / grasp of the concept mainly. So type out an answer. Let me know what the big thing is behind your question, because I can help you identify solutions better if I have that big thing. Yep. Let's see. And normally I bring you on live, Brian. Just so you know, I don't. This isn't ideal for the chat, but yes. So Brittany Johnson, you have a question. You have 2 questions. One on storytelling. Check this out real quick. Show us an example of how you use storytelling in your copy. I suppose especially interested in how you say you can change the order up, like it's not totally following the hero's journey template. Sure. Okay. Let me think. Let me think back on how I use the hero's journey. Let's see. Man, you're putting me on the spot because I've got to rack my brain on when I used storytelling in the last piece. A lot of the pieces I've written more recently have been very direct, so I haven't had to use storytelling for a lot of them. Like they're not quite stage 5 sophistication, so storytelling isn't as relevant as maybe a more direct offer or a better mechanism or something like that. But the I'm trying to think, Brittany. Let me think about that, and I'll get back to you if I can think of a specific example. But to answer your question from a strategic standpoint, by changing the order up for the hero's journey, you create an open loop. Andre Chaperon talks about it, NLP talks about it, all that kind of stuff. It basically means that the human brain recognizes that there's a break in the pattern, and it causes them to pay attention. So that's just a super, super deep psychological principle that humans pay attention to patterns, and if there's a break in the pattern, it draws our attention. Now, if they're expecting, the young hero gets called up to adventure and then goes on the adventure, undergoes trial, defeats the big bad, gets his reward, goes back to the main area, and that's the hero's journey, then an interrupt of that would be the hero gets called to action, he goes to the fight and literally loses, and then dies, or something terribly bad happens. Like the story is of Joe Schmo. Let's just use a Make Money Online example. The story is Joe Schmo, and Joe Schmo is maybe even the narrator or something like that. And he says, "Look, this is how I failed, and this is how I went bankrupt doing internet marketing." That's going to capture people's attention. And now you weave the story in to teach about all the negatives and the mistakes that people make in internet marketing, and you draw them into the pain that's associated with internet marketing, and eventually get them to the point where you're persuading them to purchase some sort of product or information thing or mentorship or whatever to avoid the pain that was involved. But you're using the the open loop of a broken hero's journey to capture their attention, and then utilizing that story. That's an example of how you would do that by breaking up the template, and you would do it strategically. You would do it on purpose in order to capture attention in a crowded marketplace. So to your second question regarding Debbie's question, some techniques or offers you could use for a book other than free plus shipping, like a small independent author or publisher. Okay, yeah, so that's more funnel stuff than copywriting stuff, but the free plus shipping offer works really well if there's some built-in demand for whatever that expert's already teaching. Coming out of the blue with a free plus shipping offer is difficult unless you have pre-built clout. Now, if you're trying to, let's say, sell a book, and that's your primary source of income, first I would tell you to rethink your business strategy. Making income from a book is difficult. You should have a back end of some sort, and if it's your author or it's a publisher, like let's say of a fiction or more entertainment style thing, then your back end is your additional books. So your main goal would be to get the person entranced with your fiction series by offering them some sort of incentive, either free plus shipping or some sort of other incentive to get your first book, and then hooking them so that they go and buy the other 7 in the series. That's kind of the angle that you want to go with for fiction, because serialized fiction is by far more profitable than just one book. You're never going to make a good income on one book. Even Harry Potter was a serialized fiction. If it was only one book, she wouldn't have been nearly as successful as if there were, unless there were 7. So, as far as funnel stuff goes to sell them, I've seen long-form sales letters sell books really well for fiction and nonfiction. One of the very first handwriting assignments you guys did was Zane Grey. That's a good example of selling fiction via long-form copy through storytelling and visceral stuff, like getting people curious about reading the stories of Zane Grey. There are other examples for fiction. Nonfiction, it runs the gambit. Basically, you're doing the same thing as selling them on the information product if it were online versus in a book. The mechanism is the exact same. So think about long-form sales, think about VSLs, think about email funnels and launches and sales letters and things like that. All of those work to sell books. But at the end of the day, you need an audience, which you can find via email, banner ads, Facebook ads, offline, online, all that kind of stuff. And you need an offer. That's it. As far as funnels go, right now, free plus shipping is probably the reigning champion as far as tactical implementation for selling a book. You have to have a back end to make it profitable, though, because a free plus shipping offer is almost always a loss leader. Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad that makes sense. Yeah, so storytelling, in regards to the follow-up for your storytelling question, storytelling is most effective when you are at a higher, at a lower level of awareness. You know, the client is not as aware of their problem or the solutions that they're looking for, because at the end of the day, every single one of your sales messages is going to be interrupting that person in whatever they're doing. If they're not immediately in a problem or immediately looking for a solution, then they're more open to, you know, something that's just straight up curiosity driven or intriguing, because they want to be distracted. Especially on Facebook advertising nowadays, you can get away with distracting people because that's why they're there. But the higher levels of awareness, the ones where they're more aware and they're more, you know, they're looking for solutions or they're having problems that are visceral and acute, then you don't really want to bore them or scare them away or waste their time with a story unless it's hyper relevant. Now, what you can do is use story principles to intrigue them. Like I said about the headline block, you want their attention, then their interest, then to intrigue. If you get their attention and interest with a bold headline that's more aligned with their level of awareness, and then go into a story that describes where they're at, or tells a compelling thing that captures their intrigue, then you're using storytelling correctly with that particular type of awareness. But in other ways, like the Wall Street Journal, many of you guys have written that recently. The Wall Street Journal, the Tale of Two Men, was a very sophisticated, was a unaware audience. They were marketing to as many people as possible to try and get a Wall Street Journal subscription. And that worked because the story was about someone who they could relate to, and yet juxtapose the idea of being successful versus not successful, with the only deciding factor being the Wall Street Journal. That story worked well because it was a less aware audience. Does that make sense, Brittany? And so it's not necessarily sophistication, it's more about awareness. You could have a very unaware marketplace, like level 5 awareness, almost completely unaware, and still intrigue them into buying a product that was at stage 1 sophistication. No other competitors. Because their awareness would be dictated by their knowledge of the problem or their desire. And then if you have a brand new product in a brand new marketplace, you can use storytelling to draw people into their need for that product, even though they didn't have a desire previously. That's effective. So it's more about awareness, not sophistication. Let's see, I'm still waiting on Brian's question. Anybody else have any questions? I'm going to look at the thread as well, the Q&A thread. Let's see what we got here. Debbie asked that question. Research prep. Let's see. Brian's still doing his. Jenny asked her question. And we've got that. Okay, I'm still waiting on Brian's response, which hopefully he's typing some sort of response. If anybody else has any other questions, you can drop them in the Q&A thread on the Facebook page, or you can ask them right here. Let me do the hit the refresh, Mary. I haven't seen it yet. Oh, 8 comments. Here we go. All right. I had to refresh. Come on. Okay, so Mary's question on the Facebook thread is regards the Amazon mining. We don't always get the option to see the profiles of those who posted reviews. Even seeing the profiles, geographic info, and what they're interested in doesn't always give you a sample size of information. How many do you need to look at? How can you research more of their target market using other tools? Is there something else like Facebook? Facebook and Audience Insights is the best tool unless you start going into enterprise-level data analytics. So I would stick with it. It's a free tool that has enormous amounts of power, but what you want to do is start looking for independent data points. So let's say you start seeing reviews that all kind of start sounding like they have the same general issue. Well, now take those reviews that you've read and try and find other data points that you can link them to, like age or geographics or desires or other things that they mention or other books that they mention, things like that. Looking for other things to triangulate. Because if you, like for example, that's the high level principle level. The strategic level and the tactical level is if you're reading 10 Amazon reviews and every single one of them bring up the fact that they want to, that this particular book showed them how to lose cellulite on their thighs, and losing cellulite on their thighs had been really, really difficult for them up until that point. However, the book didn't talk about how to keep cellulite off. It only taught them how to like make it go away for a few weeks. That's a pretty specific problem. And now you're like, okay, I'm onto something, and you can sniff that, you can smell that. Then start looking at those responses as well and going, okay, what other things have they talked about? Did they say that they read other books or tried different things? Did they mention someone like a guru, or like I tried so and so's program and it just didn't work, or I tried so and so's book and it didn't work, or I used this tool, or I tried this like cream or something like that. You're looking for other data points that you can go and look at and get a bigger picture of that audience from Amazon specifically, because there are things you have to do to work around the limitations of Amazon. You don't have a very good view of that specific buyer. So if you can find those data points, awesome. If you can't, then take the information on Amazon for what it's worth, which is an individual talking about their problem and their beliefs about the particular thing you're looking at. Compile that in your research, and then go look for other things, like either looking up the title of the book on Amazon Insights and making sure that's okay, looking up similar titles on Amazon and seeing if there's any big names on there where you can go look and map the demographic and psychographic information to Audience Insights and all that kind of stuff. So when you're doing that target market type research, finding extra data points is a plus, but you can still find enough information by using those reviews to go and find better target market stuff. Let me know if that makes sense in a reply. So let's see. For those of us who are not pro copywriters, which methods do you recommend for each situation? Like, how do you know when to use an advertorial versus a sales page versus a VSL? Are there key elements that we should look for in how to convey the message? Okay, great question. So this is niche and situation specific, and the reason that I have a little bit of an advantage in that area is because I was able to coach almost 2,000 people when I was working with one of my clients. So I've seen a lot. I've seen businesses all across the gambit, and I know what works in what situation. So not everybody has that ability. What I would say here is this is why it's important to niche into a specific vertical and industry, because it's going to give you a better chance to see what's working right now in that industry and get better visibility on when you should use certain things. Because I can't tell you that every single time you are marketing to a stage 3 sophistication, level 2 awareness audience in the fitness industry, you're going to use an advertorial. I can't give you that because marketing is so in flux that if I tell you that and you go use it and it's wrong, you're going to blame me, even though it's probably some sort of other factor. But I will say you become much more valuable as a copywriter when you are very, very tuned into your specific industry. For example, right now in the financial publishing space, they're finding that and this has worked for a while, but for initial cold audiences, a VSL that or a long form VSL that sells a freemium report in exchange for buying a low cost, as in $17, $20 subscription, like yearly subscription for $17 to get a freemium report off of a long form VSL to cold traffic via email buys and banner, mostly email buys and cross promoting and that kind of thing, works really well for the front end in a financial publishing arena. And it has worked like that for a while. Now, they're trying different types of videos where there's live action videos, and they're trying those. They're trying webinar front ends. But for the most part, the ones that have been tested and tried are long form VSL, traditional ugly style VSLs, to a freemium report that you can get for free if you purchase a subscription. And the subscription is a very small amount for a yearly thing. And after that, they obviously lead into upsells and other options and email autoresponders and things like that. So that's an example of a specific tactical thing for that industry, which is obviously in flux. Now, I can't tell you that it's going to work every single time, that it'll work without fail, all that kind of stuff. In the fitness industry, you're starting to see more personality-based, high-gloss type video intros for people's lower-end products. Also, a lot of people in the fitness space are having success with quizzes. That might be because of Ryan Levesque and a lot of the stuff he teaches. He's got a lot of fitness clients, and so might be a quiz push that's kind of artificial. However, right now I'm seeing people with 7- and 8-figure fitness businesses who are basing the majority of their front end off of a high gloss personality-based sales pitch that is leading into a lower cost front end product, and sometimes they push people through a quiz. That's in the personal training fitness space. For supplements, you can kind of separate them from people into dogs. Like for a dog supplement, a longer form sales letter still tends to work well for a dog supplement, although it needs to be very highly designed. It needs to look very pretty online if you're going to drive people to it. It can't look like an ugly sales letter. So the design is very important for that if you're going to sell something direct. For humans, supplements tend to work better on shorter form copy that's high gloss and usually free trials. Like that kind of thing is working in certain industries certain ways. But I can't give you specifics that you can follow if you're not in those industries as a big tactical thing, or I'm sorry, as a big strategic thing. Otherwise, I'm just doing you a disservice. Okay. Does that make sense, Miri? Let me know in the question box if you got all that. Okay. If you need to rethink your question, Brian, no worries. Just or like post a big long thing in the thread or whatever. We can talk about it because I want to give it the attention it deserves. All right. All right. Let's see. Before I jump down to Dan's, I'm going to talk about Jenny. Jenny says, I don't personally know anyone in my immediate circles that fits my target market of CEOs and $2 to $10 million companies. What is the best thing to do to leverage my personal network to ask them for introductions or referrals to CEOs they might know so they're aware of my offer? What would be a good strategy for me to do? Okay, really great question, really specific. How do I leverage my personal network to ask them for introductions and referrals to CEOs who fit your demographic so that you can kind of start the relationship with those CEOs and potentially have them purchase your services. Okay, so there's several options here, Jenny. The first one is a cold outreach for a specific event. If you reach out to your current network and you say, hey guys, I have a new research service that I'm going to be presenting in a presentation, totally free, totally non-committal, or at this live event, or at this small like gathering, or this 4-hour thing, or this 2-hour thing for CEOs in Sydney or Brisbane or wherever you happen to be right now. I'm going to be doing a small presentation on cutting-edge market research that allows people to dominate their marketplaces, but it's really the best for $2 to $10 million companies. And if the CEO is in the room, then they get the most benefit from it because they can drive strategy. If you know anyone who fits this bill, I think they're going to really enjoy this. So could you tell them about it real quick? It's free. There's no obligation. It's in this area. It's at this time, all this kind of stuff. That type of straight up cold direct offer is usually pretty good because you're not asking anything of them. You're not asking them to sell people for you. It's just like a, hey, a good friend of mine is putting this on. She's excellent at what she does. And I think you would probably enjoy it, or you should check it out. And then they go to your page and look at that stuff. That's a very direct style offer. If you want to go the long route and kind of start developing those relationships, then one of the best ways to do it is to start contacting your network, your personal network, a little bit more often, kind of getting involved with them, talking with them, seeing where they're at, seeing what they're doing. And then anytime there's an opportunity that pops up for you to get in the room with their connections, which might be CEOs, then you take advantage of that. So let's say one of your connections is a marketing consultant. They're not a 2 to 10 million person, but they're going to a smaller mastermind that has a bunch of them. You try and get to that. Or you would only find that out by talking to them and knowing what they're doing and kind of going around. Or maybe someone's going to dinner at a conference with a bunch of people, or a VIP dinner. You try to get to that. And the third option, because that's kind of like the longer, more personal second option, the third option is to start cultivating your own audience of these CEOs in some sort of value-based area. You can do LinkedIn groups are very popular for this. Facebook groups not so much for CEOs. Or some sort of email list, some sort of webinar series, some sort of membership site, things like that. That would be a cold, broad, direct outreach to CEOs specifically, and not using your personal network. I think those three options probably give you give you a way to start. And if you need more, then I'm more than happy to discuss specifics. But does that answer your question, kind of? Let me know if that answers your question. Okay, cool. All right, so Mary asks follow-ups and says, what are some things you can look for? Like, is there a way to know VSLs might be better for a launch? I understand it's different from niche to niche. Just test. Where do I start? What form might be the best way to start? Okay, so in addition to picking a niche and really getting intimately familiar with what's going on in that niche and what's working, I would look at your immediate competition. How are they marketing? And measure their success by how long they've been doing their particular form of marketing. Like if you see one competitor throw up one Facebook ad and never do it again, that wasn't successful. But if you see a guy who's been doing an automated webinar for 2 years, that's been very successful. If you see a person who's been doing banner ads to a particular landing page for 2 years, that's been very successful. You need to do that specific competitive research before you start thinking of a funnel for your own stuff, because that's going to give you the lay of the land and also give you the sophistication level. So you don't want to do something so ridiculous that it scares people off, but you do want to be different enough that they pay attention. So for instance, if your market does a lot of automated webinars and you're currently at a level of sophistication that they're basically kind of getting tired of automated webinars, or they're starting to make fun of them, or they're like, gosh, don't tell me it's an automated or don't tell me it's a live webinar and make it automated, that type of thing, then you can always go do an automated webinar and not include any of the bull crap that people add to it, where they're like, one time only, limited seats, all that kind of stuff, and just be very direct about it and say, this is a recurring presentation for you to accomplish X, Y, Z, because they're at a certain level of awareness. And now you're using the medium that seems to be most effective based on your competitive research, but you're also incorporating the stuff that I teach you about beating your competitors, which is, you know, meeting the customer where they're at, dealing with their current level of sophistication. Does that make sense, Miri? I would say, number one, go research the specific marketplace that you want to be in and get intimately familiar with it. And then second, research your specific competition and see what they're doing and modify your stuff based on that. Don't go off the reservation and try something brand new. Not in the very beginning. Do that when you have money and time to test. Right. Okay, cool. Jenny, that answered your question. Excellent. Dan, let's talk about Dan's question. Let's see. Let's speak more about fictional stories in copy. Obviously, it has to be within the bounds of the law, yes. And it wouldn't make sense to be saying things like, oh my God, I lost 20 pounds of fat in 48 hours, or I made 45,000. Cool, yep. No one's made a single cent from it. But aside from that, what are the possibilities here? How far can you go with it? I heard Makepeace talk about a composite character, combining the experience of several customers into one character, building a story. What other options are there? And Mike said a +1 for this, wondering about this on a recent client project where was building a story that was based on a few stories crammed into one. Yeah, so cool, good specific questions, I like it. So I'm not going to give you the pitch on saying things that aren't true and staying within the bounds of the law. Like, don't lie about anything, ever. Full stop. With that said, though, now you can operate with any sort of truth that you have, and you can present it in the best way possible. So Makepeace's idea of a composite character makes a lot of sense. By building multiple experiences into one particular character. Maybe you have a false or fictional character who is the voice of the product that exemplifies the hero's journey, but because none of your customers or your testimonials have gone through the entire journey, you can put him together and go through every single piece of it, or show multiple objections and how he overcame multiple objections with that one particular character. You can always frame results in certain ways. You can, like, if a customer said, hey, I made my first $20 online using this method, then instead of saying, you know, so-and-so made $20, you can say, and Mike got his first sale online within 2 days of using this program. You don't have to say it's 20 bucks. You can say it's his first sale. And so there's lots of ways you can rephrase the types of stories and testimonials you have to sound better and not cause objections that don't need to be there. Because depending on how cynical your marketplace is, they're going to use any reason to not believe in your stuff. And by framing it in the right way, you can get them to kind of shelve their cynicism while still being truthful and not lying about anything. Obviously, lying is easy. Like, you can just say, hey, I lost 45 pounds in 48 hours. I was all fat. And people will be like, wow, that's bullshit. And you're like, no, it's not. You should try the product, and then run away with their money. Like, people have been doing that since the dawn of time. Don't do that. But let's see. There's other options. There's you can present things as case studies, and that way it allows you to present multiple testimonials in the form of case studies. You can take client success stories and frame them with made-up objections. So let's say the client doesn't have an objection, or the testimonial never had an objection, but their results can answer an objection that you've heard. So I would basically write a beginning to their testimonial that says, before I joined this program, I was super skeptical in its ability to help me lose fat around my midsection, because I was never able to lose fat around my midsection no matter how many diets I went on. But then when I joined this program, I lost 20 pounds in 4 weeks, and almost all of it was straight from my midsection. Like that type of rewrite would make more sense if you're getting a lot of objections for a specific thing, if you can say it truthfully. Always think about the results you have in the context of the objections and the needs of new buyers. So instead of just slapping a testimonial up there, you can always ask a customer who has written a testimonial for you to give you the go-ahead or the okay on a testimonial that you rewrite for them, if you're feeling like you really need to do that. So, for instance, some of the students in my program had gotten specific results, and I wrote a testimonial that kind of highlighted the area of their result that I wanted to highlight, and then I asked them permission to say, hey, can I say this about it rather than exactly what you quoted? And they're like, yeah, sure, that's fine, use that. Because, you know, if I can say that a person used my methods and teachings to make their client 30 grand, that's awesome, versus saying, you know, hey, I made my client $30,000, right? And obviously the implication was that he used what he learned there, but he didn't actually physically say it in the testimonial. And so I asked him and I rewrote it and we got it all figured out, that type of thing. Basically what you're going for here is the most punchy copy you can while being the most truthful. And I say be 100% truthful, but frame it in a way that answers the actual question rather than raising any questions that you would have. Does that make sense, Dan? Let me know if that makes sense, Dan and Mike. Cool. Yeah. Testimonials are an interesting thing. Keeping in mind that it's not a bad thing if you're going to take a customer's story and tell it in a way that sells your product. Because every single company on earth that has ever done a, you know, an ad on TV has done that, right? It's very, very rare that you get the actual customer sitting on TV and doing a perfectly worded interview to the camera about their particular story. It's scripted, it's specific. They hire an actor to portray that customer, and usually at the bottom of that commercial, you will see a little disclaimer that says actual client story delivered by an actor, or actor portrayed, or something like that. So it's not unheard of. It's not illegal. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing objectionable, or there's nothing morally objectionable to it. Objectionable is the word I'm looking for. However, it's up to you and how you present it, because, you know, whatever you want to do with your particular business. Okay, cool. Yeah, any follow-up questions you have, Dan, no worries. So, Debbie shared a link to his free plus shipping book. Excellent, thank you. And Mike says, trying to get a better handle on speed of delivery on client projects. It's going to be different for everyone, but what do you suggest to increase speed of delivery on client projects you're working on while still keeping and/or increasing quality? Okay, good first question. Let me see what the second one is. Related to that, you have goal timelines for specific types of videos, like sales letter take me X number of days, VSL, short video. So the second part of your question is easier to answer. That is specific to you. Like, I know people who write really fast, people who write really slow. I will never tell someone to say, you know, you should get it done in this amount of time, ever. That's 100% up to you. Obviously, clients want faster. Think about when they pay you as the start of a timer. And every second that ticks by after they pay you and they don't have something in their hand to show for it is making them less and less satisfied with your project, which means for you as the person who delivers the service, it's better for you to deliver an 85% like project, as in this is 85% of the best work I can do. If I had 6 months, I could get to 100%, but I can get to 85% in 2 weeks. it's way better for you to deliver 85% in 2 weeks than it is to deliver 100% in 6 months. Because 6 months is way too long in between paying someone and actually getting what it is you paid for. Keeping in mind, most people pay for stuff and get what they paid for immediately, instantly, right? You pay for groceries, you get to walk out with your groceries. You pay for a car, you get to drive out in the car. You pay for a digital product, it's immediately sent to your email. All that stuff is very, very quick, and we're living in a world that demands speed like that. You pay for something on Amazon, well, crap, it can be delivered by the end of the day if you're living in certain areas. So as a service provider, you have to acknowledge that that is a reality for the consumer in today's marketplace. The faster you can deliver, the better, but never deliver subpar quality. Like, don't sacrifice quality for speed. Figure out what the balance is for you. That's the answer to your second question. The first question is how to increase speed of delivery on client projects. Here's the first thing you need to do. Audit your client project procedure. Just look at what you're doing from the start of the conversation with a potential client all the way through the very end of delivery, all the way through, and audit that process. And actually ask yourself and be real with yourself, how long did that take? From the very first time the client contacted me to the very last time we talked to each other and I delivered the end product and I got the second half of my deposit or whatever it is, right? How long did that take? Okay, how long did the sales process take? How long did the initial writing process take? How long did the rewrite process take? How many back and forths were there? How long did the contracting process take? Like, how long did they debate that back and forth? Did they pay on time? Did they not pay on time? And start getting the timeline down for every single client you work with, and you're going to start seeing patterns. One of those patterns is that you're going to usually have a very fluctuant client, client conversation window. Some clients will take a while, some clients will be very, very short. And then you get to decide which ones you liked working with more. The people who decide in a very short period of time or the people who decide over a long period of time. Which ones do you like working with more? Then you start looking at the project. How long does it take you to deliver on this VSL? How long does it take you to deliver on a piece of on an email package? That sort of thing. Start auditing yourself. Once you've got that data from your last 3 to 5 to 10 to 15 clients, look at it in one spreadsheet or in one piece of paper. Like I use analog, so I'm usually on a notepad, and go, okay, where are the gaps? What is causing me to hang up here? Where are the things that I can shorten? Like with contracting, do I write a proposal for them from scratch every single time that wastes 2 to 3 days? Okay, get a standard proposal down. And now I just need to fill in the blank and it takes you an hour instead of a few days. Now you just saved that 3 days. For a VSL, does the market research for a VSL take me 2 weeks? Okay, how long did I spend on this and that? Like, how long did I mess around on Facebook? How long did it actually take me? All right, now let's cut that out. That's how you do it. Audit yourself first, and then look for the gaps for yourself to fix. Because for me, it used to take me a long time because I had no processes. And then to be perfectly honest, I started teaching this course and realizing how scattered I was. And I needed to figure my stuff out. And now I can deliver in a very quick period of time because I did the exact same process. Does that make sense? Time Doctor is an app that you can install on your browser. Daniel Sanchez says that I think it's a Chrome browser. Maybe I have a different one, Time Tracker or something, that shows you how long you spend on certain websites. My thing is, don't ever tell yourself you have to do extra. Try to go back and look at what you already did, right? Because if you tell yourself you're going to audit yourself for the next project, you're adding an extra thing and it's going to take you longer to do everything and blah, blah, blah. Like, go look at your past because that is the raw data. That's not the fucked up data that you start with. Thanks, Jenny. I appreciate that. Scott, so do I get paid 50% upfront or 100%? It depends on the size of the project. For bigger projects, I usually take 50% upfront, maybe 66% upfront, and then 50% on delivery. And it's initial delivery, not on rewrite delivery. It's on initial delivery of the final product, not any additional rewrites or optimization. It depends on the size of the project, though. Like my past 7 projects, I've all gotten paid 100% upfront because they were smaller-ish projects, you know, like 1,000, 2,000, 6,000 type projects. Does that make sense? Yeah. The 50% thing is so that's actually it's sort of a deeper question with a lot of freelancers. Like, do you cut your stuff in half? 50% now, 50% at the end. Honestly, it depends on how well I know the client, how well they know me, and like basically how I'm feeling. I know that's like, after this talking systems, not a great answer, but if I feel like the client is one where, you know, I might lose them if I say all up front and I really want to work on that project or with that particular client, then I'll say 50% because I want to work with that client. And then I know they're good for it because I've seen them work with people in the past and they don't run away with people's money. If I'm feeling sketched out, or if I'm feeling like, you know, this guy was a little hard to get a hold of when we're talking to each other, I'm going to ask for all of it up front. And that either scares them off or they pay me up front, which is awesome. And that means I can get my work done super quick. They're all happy with it and everybody's hunky-dory. When you have to chase a client, it ruins everything for both people. Clients don't like being hit up for money all the time, and freelancers hate chasing. So try to avoid that at all costs. Yeah. Actually, funny story on that, Scott, regarding the company you mentioned in your question. They are one of the ones I had an issue with. It was for a smaller job, but I had an issue with them. So not always. Just because they're big doesn't mean they're perfect. They usually like to get away with shit. All right, we've got 10 minutes, and I finished all the questions in the Q&A thread and in the chat so far. So I have a hard stop in 10 minutes, guys, so I can probably answer one long question or two short questions, and then we'll be done for the day, unless everybody's done, and then we can end it early, and you can all go do more research on the book and enjoy your week. It's up to you. Who's the best storyteller? Homer. Homer is the best storyteller. Or Shakespeare. I don't know. There should definitely be a Shakespeare versus Homer epic rap battle of history. As far as modern day copywriters for best storyteller, I'm probably going to go with Andre Chaperon. Andre Chaperon is probably the best storyteller. Michael Fiore is pretty good. Chris Haddad, Michael Fiore, same guy, is pretty good. But I honestly feel like Andre Chaperon is probably the best in the business right now when it comes to internet marketing, sales, copy, storytelling. Yeah, sure, Jenny. How can I improve my writing abilities? Talking specifics like an ultimate list. Actually, I can't see who sent that question, though, because it's not telling me the asker. I can just click on it. Okay, Daniel Sanchez. Ghost. Let's see. All right, Daniel says, how can I improve my writing abilities in general? I'm talking specifics like an ultimate list. All right, first and foremost, the number one piece of advice I give to people who do copywriting, or advertising writing or business writing or anything of that sort, like basically professional writing, right, is to read or listen to more fiction. Put it on Audible, download it from your library, which is free. You know, read at night, whatever. Get more fiction in your bloodstream, because the more you process fiction through your head, the better you're going to be at putting sentences together, understanding people, understanding dialogue, making sure the stories make sense, figuring out how to make intrigue and open loops and all that kind of stuff. I mean, if you want to see open loops, read some Game of Thrones or some of the Expanse series like Leviathan Wakes, and notice how every single chapter is a cliffhanger. And it goes on to another person and tells a different story, and it just draws you through the story as you go. That is really good writing. And that's my number one piece of advice to any writer, is to listen to more fiction. The second thing that I would do to improve your writing ability is to get people to look at your writing more often. in a in a real context, not like a, hey, can you review my thing and give me some advice on it? More like a legitimate, like, this is going to go out to people and I need someone to look at it type thing. And I know it's kind of like a soft pitch for a review, but if you have someone who you can have like an accountability writing partner, so you don't have to pay someone every single time to do it, the more eyeballs you have on your writing before you send it out to a crowd, the better it's going to be in general. And the third thing I would say is make sure that editing and reviewing your own stuff is a tangible part of your writing process. Like, editing it needs its own chunk. If anything, it needs to be the longest chunk. And you need to figure out the best ways to edit for you, like if it's going to be for syntax first so it all makes sense, and then for flow second so that all your pieces fit together and nothing's all bouncy or disjointed. If it's reading it out loud to yourself, that sort of thing. Make editing a specific chunk. Those three things. Listen or read more fiction, get people to look at your work more often, and make editing a specific chunk. Those are the three biggest ways to improve your writing abilities drastically. That's how I would say it. Let's see. Yep. Yeah, honestly, my copy improved by 10x when I started listening. I allowed myself to listen to more fiction, and I just got so much better at writing copy, because at the end of the day, you're interrupting people and trying to entertain them in addition to make them buy something. So I just sounds better. All my stuff sounds better after doing it. As far as routines go, I don't think routines make you a better writer. I think they make you a more consistent writer, which is most writers' biggest problems. If you routinely deal, well, routinely, funny story. If you routinely deal with writer's block or procrastination, it's because you don't have a routine. So I'm going to patent that, or like TM that right there. If you routinely deal with writer's block or procrastination, it's because you don't have a routine. That's what I truly believe. So if you have that problem, you need to build a routine around writing, and you need to keep it sacred. I'll use the term sacred because if something is sacred to you, you brook no arguments on whether or not you're going to do it or not, right? There's no wishy-washy crap. There's no, I have to do something else. If it's sacred, you fucking do it, no matter what. And a lot of people do not have anything sacred in their lives. So maybe the one thing you need to start is a writing period of time. Lee Child, I've heard that name. I haven't read anything by that person. But yes, I've heard the name. Let's see. Oh yeah, Jack Reacher, definitely. Yeah, a lot of those novels that have those main characters kind of like that 24 feel to them, where they're page turners and they pull you straight through. That's awesome stuff, especially for copywriting, because it shows you how to use open loops and cool stories to bring people through. I'm just more of a fiction sci-fi guy. I'm not like a modern guy. I read Tom Clancy back in the day, but never got super into it. I do, Scott. Way more regularly now. I used to not do it, but since I found people out here, I do. Let's see. I don't know. Scott asked me to tell a story that we'd never know. Personal, funny, gross, embarrassing. Tell a story. Embarrassing story. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I don't have any off the top of my head. I never do anything wrong. I'm the perfect paragon of teaching and mentorship. I am incredibly boring. You're learning copywriting from me, guys. Come on. I'm a student of copywriting. I'm boring. I guess there was the one time I blacked out drinking with my entire company in Boulder, Colorado, and I ended up sprinting down Pearl Street wearing a French flag and laughing like a stereotypical French dude. That's funny, right? That happens. That's something you know about me. You guys can all imagine that happening. Okay, so with 2 minutes left, I'm going to cut off the questions at this point. Hopefully this was informative for you guys. I'll get the recording up as quick as I can. Uploads are being a little slow just from YouTube. So I'll get this up as quick as I can. If you have any additional stuff, like Jenny, you wanted to talk, Brian, you wanted to talk, let me know. And yeah, questions about the assignment on Friday. Research is due by midnight on Friday as normal. I'll try to get everything back to you guys by Sunday so you can keep working. And we are entering the home stretch. This is week 7. Next week is week 8. And then we're going to be talking about, you're going to have some interesting assignments for week 9 or week 10. And we're also going to be doing a lot more like, okay, this is where the rubber hits the road type stuff. So less theoretical and more tactical, where I expect you guys to have some awesome results if you actually implement what you're learning. Right? So have an awesome day, everyone. Thank you for all of your questions. I appreciate it. And I will see you in the group.